Hi everyone, my name is Laura. Welcome to my channel. I wanted to talk a little bit about lipedema and how I have interpreted that it grows, okay? So I've read countless medical journals because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. I was able to also watch several conferences that took place during the last 3 or 4 years that were put on YouTube. So that was really cool, getting to learn about like the most recent research on lipedema, as well as kind of any adipose tissue stuff. I am also super curious about the gut microbiome, and there is a very strong correlation between leaky gut as well as leaky veins and lipedema. And so I have a very clear visual of how I perceive lipedema actually takes place in the body or forms in the body. And I'm gonna share it with you guys. So, from the research that I have done, this is how I've interpreted it. So by no means am I a scientific adipose tissue researcher. I am not a hormone specialist. I am just a woman living with lipedema, and I also have ADHD, so I tend to hyper focus on some things and just learn. But this is how I sort of rationalize what's happening in my body in kind of like a fun, playful, understandable way. Okay, so what I envision. So let me just back up a little bit. So they say they do not know the cause of lipedema. However, they do know several things that trigger lipedema growth. And what those are is generally an influx of toxins and fluids that's not being disposed by your lymphatic system. So this is what I envision. I envision that my body is very, very smart. And so the fact that I have lipedema, I see that as my body finding an alternative solution to not being able to get rid of all of the toxins and garbage that is left in my body, essentially. So this is what I picture. I sort of picture a little Pac-Man, okay? And so this fat, that's not lipedema fat yet, detects that there are some toxins or there's an influx of estrogen or fluids. And so what it does is, here's the fluids, and there might be some estrogen in there, maybe even some abnormal cells. And so I picture this fat just gulping that up. Okay, so like Pac-Man, he just eats that up. And then what happens is he's like, oh, we need an extra layer of protection. And so it encases it with a protective layer so that none of that bad shit can get out and get back into my system. And then the coolest thing happens. My fat, which knows that it has, X number of fat cells, says, wait a minute, one of our fat cells is missing. And then says to the fat cell machine, which typically as an adult you don't make more fat cells, they just expand or shrink. And so here, this is a fat cell, but it's been encased, and now it's actually lipedema. And so, Jay, who's in charge of making sure that there's adequate fat cells in the body to sustain storage for food or whatever, says, hey, fire up the fat machine, and then it produces another fat cell. So then we have another fat cell here. Generally, it's going to be on our legs. Some women will produce these new fat cells around their hips and then even their arms. There are other women that have reported it being around their torso and even their lower back, but typically it's legs. So this is why during hormonal changes, because this has been deemed another trigger for lipedema fat growth or lipedema growth, this is why then some women will experience extreme weight gain, but particularly on their legs, thighs, and hips. And so when I sort of rationalize what my body is doing, I actually think of it as being very helpful and ingenious. I have to say, our bodies are so smart. So because our bodies are so smart, we're then left with lipedema. So I just wanted to explain this because they do say that there's a correlation between leaky gut and leaky veins. So when the gut becomes permeable and fluid is leaking out, or food particles or protein or whatever leaks out, well then what happens is the lymphatic system is overloaded, and then it will also then trigger new lipedema fat growth. So this fat cell says, hey, I see some junk over here, and it eats it up, engulfs it, and then the foreman at the back, who's in charge of making sure that there's an adequate number of fat cells, says, hey, make another fat cell. We got another one missing. He's gone rogue. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm being so silly. However, this has helped me a lot. And so now, knowing the different things that trigger lipedema fat growth, we can then do different conservative therapies to prevent an influx of toxins in our lymphatic system. So one thing for me is when I eat wheat, I feel sick and I feel inflammation pretty quickly. And so I think it's very clear to me that that food is not a good food for me to eat in large quantities anyways. Like if it's in like a sauce or something, I'm not checking at the restaurant like crazy. But some people may need to. Another inflammatory food that a lot of people can't eat, or not can't eat, but choose not to if it causes inflammation, is dairy. Corn can be one. Heavily processed or modified foods tend to be something that might trigger leaky gut. So then also I have venous insufficiency. So one of the things that I do, I can't really cut anything out, but I wear compression leggings. I do legs up the wall often. As my vascular surgeon said, if we lived on the moon and we were weightless, it wouldn't be an issue having venous insufficiency. But I do these things so that I can support my body in getting rid of any extra or excess fluids that it doesn't necessarily need, as well as getting that blood back up to my heart when the valves aren't necessarily working to pump it back up. So I just wanted to do a fairly short video on my interpretation of how lipedema works, and know that this is simply an interpretation, and it is simplified in a silly, fun way to make it a little bit more easy to understand. But yeah, if you have a different interpretation of exactly how lipedema growth occurs in our bodies, feel free to share it in the comments. Like, I love to hear everybody's interpretation of exactly how lipedema works. But that is it for today. Bye.